So why is the Goannas important to me? That's the question that Stretch asked me a week ago when he asked me to speak tonight to all on behalf of the Goannas. Now, I thought about this question for a long time, and I realised that there were so many things I could talk about. I could talk about all the amazing people, Stretch, Ramos, Rod, Bridget, and many other people, and what an awesome job they've done in transforming these guys from the boys that they were to the men you see standing before them. With the exception of Shane, but he's certainly the most beautiful princess the week ever could have hoped for. I could talk about how far we've come in the last 2 years and all the effort and dedication that these boys have put into this team. I could talk about the emotional roller coaster that we went through last year, from the lows of the World Championships to the highs of the Asia Pacific Games. I could talk about how far we still have to go in our journey of achieving our goals and setting up on that podium next year at the Deaf Olympics. But as I thought about all these awesome things that I could talk about, I realised that none of these really answer the question. They all answer something different. Who we are, how far we've come, and how far we have to go. None of these really answer the question of why the Goannas is so important to me. So I want to tell you a little story. When I was 7 years old, I was what most people would consider a normal kid. One afternoon I was at a vacation care centre during the school holidays where my auntie worked. Now as cliche as it sounds, I can actually picture it like it was yesterday. It was a big oval where we played backyard cricket, a massive sandpit with a big swing in the middle, a big wooden cubby house, and pavement on the back of the building with a wooden bench. And outside running around as you do when you're 7 years old, I remember coming around the cubby house and some sand had been kicked up onto the pavers, and I thought my legs slid out from under me and I went head first into the wooden bench. And all I got was my auntie giving me an ice pack and telling me to suck it up and keep going. It wasn't until that night that I was at home and I heard the phone ring, and so I rushed over to answer it, and I picked it up and there was nothing. And I just kept standing there on the phone going, hello, is anyone there? And my mum came storming in the room and she's shouting at me, I can hear them yelling through the phone in the room next door. And I had a confused look on my face, I wasn't sure what was going on. And she told me to switch the phone to my other ear, so I did. And straight away I recognised the voice. It was my auntie. She was ringing up to check on me to see how I was after I hit my head earlier in the day. So fast forward a few days and I'm at one of the Australian hearing centres. I've got big headphones on, little mini basketballs, I hoop up on the wall. Every time I hear a noise, I shoot some of a bad way to do first hearing test, and I try to ask them to let me do that now, but they keep telling me I need to grow up. I remember sitting there with the audiologist, my mum were talking, and the audiologist turned to me and said, you've lost hearing in your left ear, you're going to have to wear a hearing aid. And I looked at my mum and I said to her, what's the big deal, it's only a bit hearing, right? And she broke down in tears. So it turns out I was born with LVAS, which is large vestibular aqueduct syndrome. You got that?
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
So basically I get a few head knocks and I lose hearing. So it's silly that I look back on it now, but the one thing I took away from that conversation with the audiologist wasn't that I was going to have to wear a hearing aid. It wasn't that I was going to have to do speech therapy, and it wasn't that I was probably going to lose most of my hearing. It was that they told me that I couldn't play basketball anymore. And it seems silly, but if everything in life up until that stage is revolved around basketball, that can be pretty tough to take. So over the next year, a few head knocks, I lost most of my hearing. I had a hearing aid in my other ear. Eventually I lost enough hearing that I had to get a cochlear implant. And I always remember switching that on for the first time and having to ask the audiologist to stop speaking because she sounded like a dude and it was freaking me out. So quick recap on the next 10 years. I moved schools 4 times, and everyone knows settling into a new area takes a bit of time. We have to get used to the new area, used to new teachers, meet some people, make some new friends. So when you throw in that extra barrier of communication, it can become a bit of a chore. So, I mean, I just really didn't enjoy going to school. I found it hard to connect with people. I skipped 11 weeks in year 9 because I just didn't enjoy going to school that much. That's a whole term. So by the time I moved all the way out to Mudgee for the start of year 11, before even moving there, I'd become content with the fact that school was probably going to be over before I really had a chance to make any new friends. So I enjoyed staying at home, watching movies and playing video games by myself, because for a short period of time that meant that I could be in somebody else's world and I didn't have to be in mine. So this is a pretty low point for me. Combine that with some bad eating habits, and before you know it, I got about 25 kilos overweight. It was a pretty tough point in my life, and I was a bit of a miserable person. So by that stage I got a second cochlear implant, and I realised I wasn't at risk of losing any more hearing, so I thought I might as well get back into basketball. So it started from there, and everything just seemed to grow. It started with just shooting around in the outdoor courts in Mudgee. Eventually I started playing in the domestic comp. I started travelling 250 kilometres to Dubbo just to play in their domestic comp, and then eventually started playing the state league. And before I knew it, I was travelling 750 kilometres a week for about 6 hours of basketball. But I could never really shake this feeling that something was still missing. You see, I've always fit in with the basketball teams that I've been a part of, but you see, some of my coaches and teammates wouldn't really understand that they want me to play with my hearing aids on so that I could communicate with them. But if I played with them on, generally sweat or something like that would mean that my hearing aids would break and I'd be left not hearing anything for the next day. So when I got an email confirming the tryouts for the Goannas back in 2012, I was so excited. I mean, I really had no idea what to expect, and just being given the opportunity to try out for an Australian team was insane. So imagine my surprise when I arrived here in Melbourne for that first camp, and I realised that all of these guys were just like me. You know, we all love basketball and they all had great personalities. But the difference between this team and any other team that I've been a part of was that they understood what it was like being deaf or hard of hearing. I had a connection with every one of these guys on the team, and at that first camp I didn't really quite understand what that was. It wasn't until I'd gotten home from that camp, I'd gotten off the plane, I got my car ready for a 4-hour drive back home, and I had all this time to think, and I realised that that connection that I had with these guys, that was what I'd been missing for the last 14 years. There's a sense of belonging. You see, I said before that I fit in with my other basketball teams, but see, fitting in and belonging are not the same thing. Fitting in is changing who you are so that you can be accepted by others. Belonging is having a place for the person that you are. See, that's the one thing that I know that I can count on these guys, is at the end of the day, they've got my back and I've got theirs. They accept me for who I am. So we had a group of guys that we all love each other very much, even to the point that it's a little bit creepy. Sam and Sparkles, they know what I'm talking about. So the team was still missing one thing. We needed someone to lead us. We needed someone who could come along and smack you up the back of the head and say, hey, what you want isn't enough. Aim higher and work harder. We needed a selfless person who could teach us that by putting the team first, that we could achieve so much more. And I can guarantee you that you wouldn't be able to find a more selfless person than Stretch. Someone who would dedicate time, effort and money into a deaf basketball team without having ever met a deaf person before. We're privileged to have a coach like Stretch. And I know that my teammates and my coach have pushed me every single day, and that they will continue to push me to be the best version of myself that I can be. I want to thank everyone for coming in tonight and helping us raise money and giving us the opportunity to go overseas next year and try and achieve our goals. But I want to just thank everyone for being here. I want you all to know that we're thanking you for allowing this family to be the best that it can be. Thank you.